Hi, I just wanted to continue this. There's like a 15-minute maximum, or at least used to be, for YouTube videos, and so I always want to stop at that point just to make sure we don't go over. So I was talking here about this second part of the homework, and I'm just going to pull up the one that has the work already done or whatever. But we were talking about this, and basically, like, the first half of this was taking problems and it was doing them all on one line, or it was letting you do them all. So you would have like L horseshoe B L, and then you would have a line, and then you would have the letter B, and we could label that modus ponens. Well, the problem is that problems won't always work out that simple, and then you can label it modus ponens. Sometimes you won't be able to reach your conclusion in one line. Sometimes you'll have to have multiple lines. So what we do is, in order to save space, is we put it into just basically lines. Each line is an operation, and we label it line 1 and line 2 were used with a modus ponens to reach B. And so what people can do is they can look back and go, line 1, okay, that's line 1, okay, and line 2, okay, well, that's there, was used to reach the conclusion, which is right here. And so whatever you put on this line, you should be able to look back and say, using this line and this line. In some cases, with simplification, it's just a single line. There's not two numbers, there's just one. But you can then say those two lines were used to reach it using modus ponens. And so that allows us to condense the space. Now what you have here with these logical proofs is you have like the letter B here, and the letter B is the conclusion. And so you're using these rules. These rules here, 1 and 2, are our premises, and then everything after the slash is the conclusion. And so you're going to use these rules here to show how we reason to this conclusion. And so what we're doing here is, instead of just trying to prove it's valid or trying to prove it's logical, is we're trying to follow the process. If these premises are true, will it reach this conclusion? How do we use our reasoning process to do it? So if we come along here to number 2, we have J horseshoe K, we have bar K, and we're trying to prove bar J. And so what we find is that we can deny the consequent, and then that will deny the antecedent via modus tollens. So we just have 1, 2 modus tollens to do that. Now the thing to keep in mind, though, is not always can these things be reached in one line. Sometimes it takes 3, 4 lines, and that's why we have, we do this. Like, here's number 10. I can just show you this one real quick. J horseshoe bar K horseshoe L, and then bar L. Well, there's actually 2 ways to do it, and then there's J wedge Q. There's a lot of information here. There's 4 premises that can be used to help prove to this conclusion. And what's done is you can do it a couple of different ways, but one way to do it is to take this as a middle term, bar K, so you can take the antecedent and the consequent and use lines 1 and 2 with a hypothetical syllogism to get J horseshoe L. You can then take the bar L up here, line 3, with line 5, J horseshoe L, to do a modus tollens. So you have, it's the only problem with doing this on this Word document is sometimes it knocks me around a little bit. So you have this, basically, you have these 2 statements. You have J horseshoe L, you have bar L, and you're getting bar J via modus tollens. But instead of rewriting that there, I am simply going to write Sorry, hold on. instead of rewriting it there, I am simply going to write this is not wanting to stay in my screen. I am simply going to write that lines 3 and 5, this is line 5, and this is line 3, bar L, were used to reach with a modus tollens that. And so instead of having to write this and then have the one before showing the hypothetical syllogism, we're putting it all in one line, and then we're reaching that conclusion, which is via disjunctive syllogism between lines 4 and 6. So we have line 6 is bar J, and this is J wedge Q. We know J is not true, that means Q is true, and that shows it's right there. Now, when you get to one of these problems, the biggest issue a lot of people have is they go, well, how do I get started on this? Well, the way you get started is, to begin with, I started off with some fairly simple ones of these. I didn't start off with these problems that are, 10 lines and, taking 10 lines to reach the conclusion. As a matter of fact, I don't believe that anything that you have on the test or in the homework will go no more than like maybe 4 or 5 lines. Maybe 6 or 7 in the homework, and that may be just to give you a little bit more challenge before you go take the exam. But the exam wouldn't have anything that long. But the reason why is because we are is that you are trying to follow the reasoning process, and one of the ways to find and to say, well, how am I going to prove that Q is true? Well, without seeing all the answers, you've got to figure out how to do it. Well, the first thing you might do is say, well, you have Q as part of a disjunctive statement, or just, you have J wedge Q. Well, if I knew bar J, then I would be able to say that, Q is true. And so then you look up here and you go, well, I don't see bar J anywhere, but I do see the letter J up here. So if I could get bar J somehow out of this statement, I could do a modus tollens. And then you go, but I don't have bar K anywhere, but I do have bar L, and bar L would make this via modus tollens bar K, and bar K would make that bar J, and that would make that. And so you can kind of work the problem backwards. You look and see where you're at, and you try to follow the problem backwards. It takes a little while to get used to it, and a lot of times people will say, well, I follow it when you show me, or I follow it when I see the answer, but it'd have a hard time. The best way to do it is just keep doing more problems. That the first time, you do it, a lot of times you'll have to look at every problem. But then what you can do is you can print out a new sheet, give it a day, and do it again. And you can print out a new sheet, do it again, and eventually you'll get these down and you'll be more comfortable. You'll see how to do it.